Hello. Hello again. Hello for the first time, maybe. Um, Let me get this out of the way first. This is essentially a promotional video. I know. Grim. Left on Red is my upcoming book. Um, and unfortunately, I need to make something to give me the delusion that there'll be anticipation surrounding it because of this. But it will also have or be linked to at the end of the ebook. So if you have just read it, please pause this and go and review it. You know you want to. But yeah, what I also want to try and do is combine it with it is promotional, but at the same time I'm trying to give a kind of brief overview and insight as to what inspired the whole collection as well as its individual components. That makes me feel somewhat less disgusting by the fact that this is essentially an advert. But, you do what you can to try and balance these things in a kind of ethical manner. And yeah, that's the only way I can really justify it, I suppose. So yeah, probably sounds a bit strange by the fact that it has a link in the ebook, but I think that's a trajectory that I seem to be heading toward, or at least with this collection. And it feels appropriate because, yeah, a lot of the book, if I was to describe the themes, technology or modern technology at least, is certainly one of them. From FaceTiming to live streaming to recording videos to content creation to Instagram poetry and all of this kind of stuff. Like there's like that's one of the main kind of like subject matters that crops up. It's not in every story, but it is in enough for me to at least warrant or say that it is a theme of the of the piece. But the main theme is, yeah, atomization and isolation, abuse, mental illness, all of that type of thing. And I think that ties in with the modern world very well, unfortunately. And yeah, it is placed in a dystopia overall, which I think we're currently in. So, it's not a fantasy world, it's the world that we are regrettably trying to survive in currently. Hopefully that will change. I don't know whether I'm trying to hold a mirror up to that or something. If it sounds good, then yeah, that's what I mean. But yeah. I want to say, I suppose when Michelle Welbeck released Atomized, the characters in that book were kind of heading toward a world that was this way, whereas the characters in my collection are basically its victims and people who are trying to survive and also seek human requirements such as physical touch, intimacy, or even just communication, but only with the technology that is at hand. And therefore, the pretty grim ramifications of that are evident throughout the whole piece. So it's about people yearning for something and feeling left on red. But in the same vein, it's almost like, because it is in a dystopia, most of the time that isn't going to have a happy conclusion. In fact, it's going to be a pretty grim one. And it's hard for me to like promote this in a kind of like, yeah, you should really check this out because there's a lot of really savage depictions in this, and sometimes I worry for my mental state looking back at probably, well, there's about 9 or 10 stories in it. 90%, I would say, overall of them. Yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted, I suppose. Anyway, here is the cover, and here is the table of content, or contents, as we once said. It begins with Aftertaste. Aftertaste is available on my website if you're interested. It won't be once the collection's out, so get it while it's hot or while you can. But that is about an e-girl who, some of you might remember a time when Twitch streamers were stripped of their advertising right because they were doing hot tub streams. And, you know, it wasn't even that long ago, really, probably a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. I'm pretty sure the internet doesn't give a toss about that anymore, considering the amount of thirst trappy even adverts on YouTube nowadays are smut, basically. So it would surprise me if this is still an issue, but I guess people have moved on from it. I remember that coming up and yeah, kind of stuck in my head for whatever reason. And when I was penning this story, I just thought, okay, I'm going to have an e-girl kind of streamer as the main thing. That's going to be an obstacle toward her career. And that's going to set her off on a path where she ends up meeting one of her supporters or donators. And yeah, that's it. It does have some influence from Belle Delphine, mainly because our protagonist idolizes her and wants to emulate her career to a certain extent. And yeah, some of the exchanges were, or at least antics, were also taken from Belle Delphine herself. And I think the story works well as an opener, mainly because it ticks a lot of the above that I just mentioned in terms of the themes. So for me, if I was triaging the themes and topics and subject matters and whatnot, it kind of has everything. It's got this very cynical dystopian tone to it. It's almost befuddled and scatterbrained in the way it's conveyed. It features abuse, exploitation, everything being about moolah or pussy or whatever. And yeah, it's slightly influenced by The Blind Owl by Sadiq Khedayat. I don't think that was conscious. I just think I remember if you've ever read that novella, it has this way where the madness of it sort of becomes like a repetitive mantra, and that certainly happens throughout that story. It's also, yeah, I was going to say it's also got a kind of poish tint, but I think that's just, yeah, par for the course with my writing for some reason. So yeah, ignore that. Following that, we have I'm _years old and I've never had a bitch or girlfriend, rather. I made a video about this, a fictionalized account of my own experience. I mentioned this in a confession video that I did last week. And yeah, that if you actually combine those two things, that's kind of what you get from this story. Although I'd say it's the least story of the whole collection overall. Because it's essentially about a guy reminiscing about a time when the internet was more innocent and innocuous and all of this kind of stuff. And he has a kind of proposition that people sense that the memory of the internet is eternal and everlasting and all this kind of stuff. There'll be an archive somewhere of everything you've ever done on it. He says bullshit to this because he actually knows that the things he was saying back when MSN Messenger and MySpace was around, I mean, the latter still is, but yeah, it's not retrievable. It's gone. It's, nothing is eternal, really. And it kind of becomes, although it does feature the storyline of the video, it kind of merges with a different experience of my own, I'll admit, of a similar type of predicament, let's say. And yeah, it's far more comical. Like I'd say, like it's pretty well, I don't know, I suppose it's irreverent in terms of its comedy. And yeah, there's something about it I'd like to delude myself into thinking that maybe the tone and style might be indicative of future writings as well, where it is a bit more contained and not as gratuitous as the other stories are. Who knows whether that will be the case, but you know, as a writer, you need cope after cope after cope. So this is one of them. Moving on. FaceTimer. FaceTimer was written around the same time as Aftertaste, which was sadly about 3.5 years ago as well. It is a story about a guy who is talking about the first time he was cheated on at the beginning, and he details it in fairly vivid account. And he also talks about it, how he almost remembers it as if it's on video, hence FaceTiming as it goes on, because he recommences the relationship with the girl who cheats on him years later with the sole intention of reaping revenge upon her. And yeah, it's a kind of short and sweet story. I mean, it's not sweet in the least, but yeah, it's a short and sour story in probably more ways than one. And what follows that is Source, originally titled In Reflections Unseen. And that is also a short and sour story, or bitter, maybe, or tart, maybe, if you were describing Source. And yeah, I've renamed it Source, not just because it has an internet, you know, hint, hint, wink, wink kind of thing, but also because of what the story features and what it talks about. That one was actually like to give a really abstract and loose inspiration. I remember being at drama school once, and a girl was reciting this monologue from some play, and the director we had told her to just start saying it as if she wasn't the one who experienced it. So in a sense, in a dissociated mindset. And she did this, and it transformed the whole significance and relevance and meaning of of what she was saying. And I wanted to try and convey that in a story of my own. I don't know whether I achieved it overall, maybe in parts. But yeah, there is this sense of, because she's been traumatized, she's essentially in the realms of her own mind state, trying to make sense of it, but at the same time probably becoming more mentally deranged because of it, because she's become a hermit and doesn't leave the house, and she's constantly reflecting on what's happened, but in a way where she doesn't claim herself to be a victim, yet she is very much a victim, and she's trying to understand it because she can't really reconcile with the fact that someone who was supposedly close to her, if not the most intimate person in her life, could do what they've done overall. Yeah. Following that, we have what is titled, and my favorite title of the collection, Thirsty Female Instagram Poet. This is the weirdest fucking story in the whole collection. I don't even know what I think of it overall, mainly because I've really experimented with the formatting style. In times of old, you had epistolary novels, which were basically letters. Frankenstein or The Sorrows of Young Werther. Loads of them back in the past were like, just people would write these like long letters, and then that would turn into like a diary or whatever, and the whole novel would be conveyed in that manner. I've tried to modernize this, and basically the story is told with poem, email, transcript of a live stream, podcast, traditional short story, then poem, and email again, then like all of these types of things. So it kind of jumps back and forth, although there is a chronology happening, because usually like the poem she might write would be about the most recent exchange. So if it was an email, then she'd be in that mindset. She's thinking about that and just typing it. And if she is essentially another Hikikomori type, like the one in Source, someone who never really leaves their room or their computer desk. And I could say what inspired it. It is loosely based. I mean, okay, so the premise is a girl receives or is contacted by a male content creator slash live streamer slash author, and she builds a bit of an obsession with this particular individual, and due to their exchanges, he has a proposition for her and one of her short stories. And yeah, that's kind of what it is. So it is loosely based on experiences I've had of making podcasts and being online in general, especially trying to make it or get somewhere as an author and all this kind of stuff. But it's also it's dripping in sarcasm and yeah, a sort of sardonic tone. Everything about it is trolling. Actually, it's a big piss take kind of story, but not just of like the character it features, but of probably my own bullshit when it comes to writing and the romanticism of surrounding it. And yeah, there's a lot of references that some of you out there may recognize. And yeah, there's some usernames featured, so you're kind of being acknowledged. There's the acknowledgements page, which doesn't exist in the collection, is sort of in that in that story. That's all I'm going to say, basically, about that one. Bus Catching is one that follows. That is about assisted suicide, which is a phenomenon that I heard about. I mean, I knew about it before, but this is in a different kind of manner. It's really grim, that story. It's very weird as well. It's probably the most existential or philosophical kind of type. It's told from a male perspective, and he is someone who assists people who want to do this, and he's kind of giving his reasons why he does it, and they are pretty odd. And ironically, I would actually say it's probably the most intimate story in the whole piece, in a heart-warming way, and until you step back and realize the reality of the things he's doing. So it was inspired also by a video I happened upon, which was about that subject. There will be a link to that in the collection as well. I don't want to mention it now because yeah, it will probably spoil it a little bit. So yeah, there is this kind of meta linking kind of thing going on with this collection. Maybe I'm blurring the line between reality and fiction even more, which is apparently my soul wants to do. But I don't think so. Not really overall. I think I'm just playing with style and what you can really do with a collection these days. I don't know. But yeah, that one's... I suppose it's the one that leaves me feeling pretty cold the most in this. Although there are a lot in this collection that do that. This one's just a bit like... overall. After that, we've got Tribute. Some of you guys out there would probably pretend you don't know what I mean when I talk about tributes in the internet context. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But that is something that features in the story. This is a novella, the longest in the whole collection. Apparently the collection demanded a novella because there was a number of stories I was trying to like make shorts, and they just kept turning into longer and longer projects. And so I just kind of gave in after a while and thought, okay, fine, this will be its own thing. And it will be as well. It will be a standalone release. So I'll make a video in future talking about that phenomenon, but also mentioning this novella and give more detail as to what inspired it. Because it's got an interesting history, that book or story. So yeah, watch this space for that. Then we've just got a couple of others that I did publish a long time ago. Chameleon is actually the oldest story in the whole book, and that's the one that closes it. I decided to go with that Oh, well, the one before that is Je ne sais quoi. That was another one written around the time of Aftertaste and FaceTimer. I think maybe slightly before. Yeah, it was. It was before. And that's about a guy a recently widowed man writing to his late wife about his increasing attraction to their daughter, who is of the age they were when they first met. So the more he dives into that and tries to understand it, the daughter's also like sleepwalking a lot. So he has moments where he's like seeing her in the middle of the night and she looks like the spitting image of his wife and all this kind of stuff. So it's about a very troubled family unit, and the reason he's becoming drawn to her is revealed the more he investigates into how he and his wife um brought her about in the first place, I suppose, but also their kind of whole relationship and all of that. So that one and Chameleon probably don't have the same technology vibe as the others, but I kind of feel theme wise they still fit pretty well, especially when it comes to the disturbing and also abuse and that kind of stuff. So it does kind of cap it off quite well. Chameleons, yeah, I think I like Chameleon because of the control it has, but it also has a similar kind of tone to Aftertaste and FaceTimer in terms of the revenge element. But I would say because it's kind of talking from the reptilian part of the brain, he's actually unaware that he's after revenge, whereas in FaceTimer it's the opposite. He's very conscious of it. Yeah, I mean that's it really. It feels a bit strange to sum up a whole collection and something that I have been working on regrettably for, I suppose you'd say, years now. I wouldn't say it's been 4 years because yeah, I have had moments where I've been writing other pieces that I need to go back to and things like that. But yeah, it's taken a while to put this together. I'm not saying that makes it any good, but yeah, that's it overall. If this kind of thing is interesting to people, then please let me know because I might be happy to go into more detail as to what inspires it, and how I come up with the ideas for the plot points or the kind of style it goes for and things like that. I know a few of you like to write yourselves, so it might be interesting to do at some point. And yeah, if you want to show your support, become a member of the channel, and then maybe I'll actually make something that would be a kind of private video talking about yeah, those things. Or yeah, you can throw me a few quid on the website or whatever, and that will go towards the cost of putting this out, which is it's not a lot because I do pretty much know how to do it virtually for free, but it still costs a little bit to do that. So yeah, thanks for watching. It's nice to touch base with you all again. And yeah, next time I'll be back with just a more similar kind of low key video, but there'll also be some reaction stuff. So the way I was doing the streams is going to be split apart and turned into just vids basically. So there will be some reaction stuff. There will be these kind of casual videos talking about whatever, and there'll also be, I don't know, I've got some ideas for some other ones, but yeah, I suppose they'd be more similar to like video essay kind of types where I'd be talking. Like the one for tribute actually would be a sort of investigation into that phenomenon and yeah, trying to discover what the intent of it is or why people, men especially, or men exclusively, do that. But yeah, thanks for watching. See you soon.